Hello, our lovely Girl Awakening listeners. Welcome to 2023. I'm Jo Hendy from the Sacred Sister Project.
I'm Amanda Parker of Mayala Organics.
Come with us as we journey into this week's Awakening episode.
I talk to a spirit. She comes in my dreams. She teaches me lessons.
Good morning, Amanda.
Morning, Jo.
Here we are back on Girl Awakening. We've got the lovely Madonna Williams here again.
So excited to have Madonna in the space.
Yes. So we had Madonna in last week, which you guys would have listened to. Well, it actually comes out today, so
yeah.
God,
We're crossing time zones and years and everything with Madonna, but there was so much in
We're
our
all
first...
crossing time
Welcome,
zones.
Madonna. Yeah.
This podcast is about crossing serious time.
yes.
I can't believe that I'm back here.
I know.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit deja vu-ish, but different.
Yeah.
What's the number one reason you would want me to share more?
Oh, wow.
There was so much in the
There was
first
so much to
episode.
unpack.
There were so many conversations we had afterwards around what you shared
Yeah.
and what you're all going to be hearing from Madonna.
The number one reason is that you've had such an experienced life, you know, and that's why you and where you sit right now is in such a beautiful spot. That so many women will resonate because there's so many different things that went on with your life. You've had grief, you know, you've had challenges, you've had so many things. Family, yeah.
Strength, bonds.
Relationships, all of
Journey.
that. And we know there's places you didn't go that were really important. I can't believe some of the things that you sent to me later that you said, I didn't speak about this. And I'm like, what? How could that not be a part of your awakening? But yeah,
well,
that's why, yeah.
But I didn't, you know, like I was really aware of time in terms of the podcast time and being relatable to the audience so that they could physically sit and listen. And I know, look, I've been listening to your podcast and other podcasts and you go back and forth and back and forth. Like, you know, if you have the luxury of an hour and a half or 2 hours, that's beautiful, and to really immerse yourself in it. And look, I think the journey that we went down in the first podcast, in an episode, the last one, I was so immersed in what I was talking about, and they were pretty big topics. And I guess I didn't want to, you know, give them the honor and the divinity that they deserved.
Absolutely.
In that way. But so
And that's
I
the thing,
did
it's
leave
always
out a few
perfect.
things.
Where we go is always perfect.
Yeah.
But yet there was so many little perfect moments still to come. So
We're going to actually just hand it over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, we did cover a lot, and I did dive in pretty quickly deep. I guess the parts that I left out, look, there was, you know, in that cancer journey in my 20s, there was a melanoma part to that, which I'd forgotten about because, as we do, you know, once we've healed from something on a physical level, we learn so much about the healing modalities that help us if we choose a more alternative path. And then we support ourselves to a point where we start to thrive, and you don't look back. But that melanoma journey, I guess, was pretty serious in that things have come back, you know, and I believe at the time, like when I spoke on the last episode, I had suppressed a lot in the early years, and I'd suppressed a lot of emotions in, you know, as a teenager. And I got to the 20s and that cervical cancer popped up, and it was a year later that the melanoma came, and that was a year before the first baby was born, our first beautiful boy Jack, and it was that same year that my grandfather died. So just everything happened at the one time, you know. So it was this big cracking open, it was this awakening, and in that process of Pop dying, and you know, and learning the art of dying as well, you know, and being with him as he passed, and that whole spiritual experience, I was having my own disease taking place, which had been, I guess, a culmination of all the, you know, a toxicity building up from those years of suppression and I guess negative thinking, that I always had this radiant positive persona, but with the circumstances of being a young girl and all of the things that had happened in childhood and teens, there were negative thoughts. And I mean, you know, let's face it, we're human, we have negative
Absolutely,
thoughts.
yeah.
But I didn't have those tools back then of being able to, and even realizing that I had the power to clear my thoughts. When I look back at the way I embraced certain readings and the way that I embraced nature, yes, I definitely had some, you know, like I was embracing a lot of superpowers back then, and as children and as young adults we do in our own way.
Innately, isn't it?
Innately.
Yeah.
But with the, you know, there was obviously things that I hadn't learned yet, and that was the power to calm my mind, and the fact that, yes, negative thoughts are part of who we are, and sometimes negative thoughts are important, sometimes they protect us.
Yeah.
You know, it's not always about optimism and positivity. A negative thought can come up for a reason, where we need to create some space, a boundary, we need to feel safe. So that's where negativity is protective. And then there's unnecessary negative thoughts. And I guess that was my journey of, you know, all of this, the cancer that came up in my body was the negative thoughts, but also the suppression of negative emotion, you know, the grief, the anger, the fear, all of that I'd suppressed, I'd mastered the suppression of, and that's where this toxicity was stored in my body. And, you know, look, the mind-body connection, that emotional body connection,
so powerful.
the emotions that, you know, that are affecting our organs, and that it's showing up in our flow, our meridian flow. You know, it's all so relevant. So that was the journey. Once I started, when I died, I fell off the horse. Then I was forced to stop.
Yeah.
And I was forced to stop and learn how to overcome adversity. And as I mentioned in the last ep, and then that's when the meditation journey began. But this scar on my back was really interesting from the melanoma. It was like a really well-known skin specialist diagnosed it, and then it was removed by a plastic surgeon. But it was level 3, so it was substantial, and I accidentally saw it in a bottle.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And it was the size of a piece of, like a small piece of fish, I guess.
Wow.
And, you know, because they all obviously have to go a little bit deep and take the perimeters and whatnot. And that was what I needed to do back then, because it was substantial, and I didn't have any knowledge whatsoever at that point in how I could deal with that. So that was removed, and it was right at the back of my heart.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's this scar that's sort of a reminder, not that I see it often, but occasionally it gets pointed out.
Yeah.
That it's at the back of my heart, and it, you know, you have these scars, you have these wounds, whether they're on the outside or the inside, to remind you, you know, remind you of your journey, and what did I learn, what did I get out of that, and as we've, you know, mentioned quite a few times, not what happens to you, but for you. So all of that stuff was the beginning of, well, not the beginning, but in the 20s, was definitely an intense time for me, a very intense time of pain and physical, emotional suffering to crack me open, and to make some big choices about how do I deal with this? You know, how do I grow? How do I evolve? And I guess all of that early childhood and the teen stuff that I delved into, the readings and, you know, some of those spiritual connections that I already had, they started to then integrate. I started to turn inwards on a deeper level. The meditation became really powerful. And even though I hadn't, you know, sort of, I because I was so injured with my back, I hadn't started practicing postures, but I would read. I'd prefer to get really old books on yoga, like quite old books, and I wanted to learn as traditionally as possible, and then moved into more of a modern approach to integrate, so I could be, I guess, people could relate as well. But, I find even now with the students, there's a dance between traditional and modern.
Yeah.
And so you're always navigating that and, I guess, curating your classes according to, what that looks like. But anyway, so that was the melanoma journey. But before, I guess the biggest part that I left out is, we think of awakening with things that happen to crack us open and things that are tough in our life. But then there's also things that are truly breathtaking, the travel that we do and the experiences that we have in nature and the experience that we have with people. And I did mention a lot my grandparents in the last episode and the impact they had on me. My parents were incredible people as well. My mum is, she's my best friend. She's, if anyone makes me feel emotional, it's definitely her. And I think she has been through so much that she's taught me resilience and joy and love, like unconditional love under fire.
I think any parent that loses a child, let alone two, is like...
Yeah. I wasn't sure if we spoke about the first passing, but we did.
Yeah,
we did. So I spoke about my parents and grandparents, and I guess because we went back, but then I guess a big part of my awakening too was meeting my husband. And
that's quite a...
It was
big thing, really. Relationship.
Yeah.
Like that intimate relationship.
Our relationships, greatest spiritual assignments and and our children, greatest spiritual assignments. And, look, meeting my husband was, when I look back, it was an awakening. He, I think I didn't realize until years into the relationship that I actually dreamt about him, and I dreamed of the person that I wanted to meet when I was younger and when I was surrounded by a lot of heartbreak and a lot of things that didn't work out for people, not just in my direct family but other people, and how people suffered through relationships. So I used to dream about this guy and what he looked like and what he was like, and even to the point of how much I wanted him to be a bit like my grandfather. Which, you've got to be careful with that, but not in, he definitely, the physicality was nothing like my grandfather. It was not like that. It was more the qualities. So this, a sense of humour, an inner strength, a loyalty, just this, a devotion, a wisdom, all of those sort of qualities. And look, when I look back in those first couple of years, I'm like, oh my God, I dreamt about you. I didn't tell him that. But, so he, and I think through the experiences that I did have, and there was a lot of mistrust with men, and there was a lot of hurt and fear. He healed me. This relationship, meeting him and what we had, or what we have now, it healed me. And that sort of took place over a number of years as my guard and my toughness, the armor that I created around my own heart, that started to melt away, cracked, and then started to just dissolve. And of course, a lot of my own self-work. But he was this soul mate that I'd met at the right time, because I met him and then things got really tough. And he was there by my side, and with that love and support, that, it's just...
You can't get elsewhere. It's like he had your back. Just holding it.
It was, when I look back and I think about it now, it's very emotional, very breathtaking. And so that was a very, very long time ago.
So you were in your 20s when you met, is that what you were?
I was turning 21.
Yeah, beautiful. Wow.
So we met a few weeks before my 21st, and he came to my 21st and met my whole family and met all my friends from uni, and everyone was really excited to meet him. And it was a hoot of a party. And one of my best friends she's a vocalist, and she sang, and we've just reconnected recently again. Actually, it was just amazing. It was just such a memorable party. There's a few other stories, and people that were there would remember and have a bit of a giggle. But then that was the beginning of him coming into my life, and then everything.
So
that
joy
followed.
came in with a lot of joy and creativity around you.
And then our journey, I mean, really up until, we've had the 2 boys, we've been through lots of family loss. He's been in the same job for a very long time, but he still loves it.
Yeah,
he'll be retiring in about 3.5 years, which is exciting. But we had a separation about 7 years ago. I think it's about that now. Hopefully we're not in another 7-year cycle. No, we're definitely not. So it was tough. It was about, I guess, the timeline where I had, was doing a lot of self-work, and it just needed to happen. So, when, I can sit here and say now, I did reach a breaking point and a cracking point where nothing was, there was no kind of energy meeting me in the middle. So, and over quite a long time, I felt like that I'd been supportive and holding space for that. But then I reached a point where it was too much, and we split up. It was heavy, and we thought it was forever at the time. Well, right. I definitely did.
Yeah.
And I actually thought that once we made that move, or I initiated that move, even though he looks back. Even a year later, he looked back and we had conversations where he said that was the best thing we could have done. But we only could say that because we got back together. Had we not, then, obviously, who knows whether that would have been. I mean, for us now, even me sitting here today, I'd feel a lot of grief.
I can feel that. Yeah.
Grief if we didn't make it happen.
Yeah.
But after 4 months, so we had that separation. It was awful. It was intense. It was a roller coaster. There was a lot of intensity.
Yeah. Of course, it's so hot in there in relationship. No matter what,
it's a
like
beautiful mess.
It is exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's a beautiful mess, and
we got to the date of signing the divorce papers.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And that date was coming up, and something inside me, it was almost like I just looked into my crystal ball, and I used all of my powers, and everything that I was practicing a lot, and just kept coming back to the question, is this your truth? Is this your truth? Is this what you really want? Can I see into my crystal ball? And I would just visualize, what does my future look like? How do I feel? And even though it didn't come up with any visuals as such, but it was a feeling. It was a feeling when I'm 10 years from now, when I'm 20 years from now, when I'm 30 years from now. What's that feeling? And his energy was really, really strong. And our relationship, even though we'd been through hell that year, and there was a lot of negativity, there was still an energy there. And I spoke to my beautiful mother. Didn't have many conversations with her because I thought I have to own this, and it really has to be my truth. And she said one thing. She said one line. she said, "Darling, only you will know."
Yes. Yeah.
And she let me own it. She knew what she wanted.
Just holding
She didn't want
space
to
for
lose
you.
her son-in-law, and she knew how much she loved him and how much we were meant to be together. But she didn't force that on me. She said, "You have to be happy,
That's a
and
gift.
only you will know." And just, I think it was just those words and that sense of empowerment at that time. And even though, you know, look, the amount of practice, the amount of spiritual connection that I've experienced, etc., when it comes to a lifelong relationship and those sort of decisions, and when things are going in you know, terribly wrong for many different reasons, and I was off track, and you know, obviously it was a beginning for me, and in my eyes it was a beginning of his actually doing a lot of self-work, doing, you know, his own writing and his own soul work, which in that 4 months it was at light speed.
Yeah.
You know, he's that type of person. He's Cancerian as well, and like my pop, takes them a while to get there, but when they get there, they go like light speed, and they get it really well because they've spent years working it out, and they usually do it much better than, you know, and that's how I feel about him now. He has moved, you know, at light speed, and he's
basically embraced his power too, rather than you know, having you be the one in the relationship that does that work.
Yeah,
and yet innately in himself on the same path as you, but not actively doing the work.
Yeah,
until
and
that
I learned a long time ago that, and I think when the kids were little, and then, you know, with family members, never teach, never lecture.
Oh yeah.
Never,
Yes, you know that one.
almost to the point of not even sharing.
Yeah.
Just embody who you are.
Yeah.
What you do, what you practice will come through. They're not, you know, it's not show, not tell. Just allow them to feel who you are, because
Such
that's
a beautiful piece of advice right there.
That's a practice that is, you know, it does take time, but it's an art form. Just embody who you are, and that was my philosophy leading right up, and I think allowing that space for then when we did get back together, because you know, I mean, the day that we were meant to be signing the divorce papers, and he could sense that I was not ready, not willing, not able, and he looked at me, you know, he was just like staring into my eyes, and the same eyes I fell in love with. And
Wow.
He said, "I'm only going to say this one more time for the rest of my life," you know, thinking that this was his last opportunity before we crossed that line. And I'll keep it sacred what he said.
Yeah.
But
we can all imagine
Yes.
something beautiful and romantic and powerful. And,
it was, you know what it was? It was a fierce truth.
Yeah.
And I felt that he had really done so much work to the point where there was a power and a truth in him that I hadn't seen so strong. And that's what reignited me.
Yeah.
And from that point on, it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
You know, for anyone who's done this, got back together, they know it's still really painful. And of course, you know, there's you together, first and second party. There might be, the second party could be your close confidants, your mum, your counsellor, your kinesiologist. I was seeing a kinesiologist. But then there's the third party opinions, and everybody else's opinions, and everybody else,
which they seem so willing to share.
And also, you know, the ones that like to take sides and make things a little bit messy on the outside,
which is only their own stuff, isn't it? Around their own views on relationship, it's wild.
100%. So anyway, that That is what it is, and I had to hold space for that because
not only for yourself but for everybody else around me, holding the space so you're not bringing that in on top of you.
Yeah, I guess I always want to practice what I preach.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, well, is this what you teach? Is this what you want to embody? So it's kind of like refraining, coming back to me. Okay, you know, all of the intensity that's coming up for me. And dealing with that first. So bringing myself back to a place of Satnam, remembering me, and a place of peace.
And that's coming
and
back.
truth. What do I want?
Truth.
What do I want? Yeah. So anyway, that was it. We spent a year healing, and then probably another year really getting laser focused about what's working, what's not working. So we'd always do at the end of the year or halfway through the year or birthdays or times on holidays, for example.
So good.
We'd reconnect and say what's working really well, what do we love, and what's not working, what's shit.
Yeah.
You know, and that awakening through our relationship for both of us. I mean, the growth, the truth, the vulnerability, the cracking open, the really owning your own shit, you know, really owning your own stuff and
Being
taking
safe.
accountability. Stop blaming. It's always come back to yourself and look, this is our example, and you know, there's many other beautiful loving souls and people that are willing to do the work where this happens, or it has the potential when things aren't going well. There's always an infinite potential, but then there's the low vibration, the high vibration, where that, as we know in the last few years, that's cracking open. That's not working anymore. It's, you know, I'm not an advocate for staying together at all costs. No way.
But there's so much joy in pushing through, you know, the stories, and pushing through where we're stuck and where we're complacent and where we're not seeing anymore for all those reasons that are part of who we are.
Or not pushing through, or surrendering.
Yeah.
Surrendering and resetting. Because that's what I find. And, you know, look, the whole yoga, aparigraha, stop forcing, stop pushing. What's blocked? What do we need to allow? What do we need to surrender? You know, the whole point of Shavasana and experiencing bliss so that we can have, you know, an infinite connection with ourselves. And there's no pushing and forcing in that. You know, there's a flow. And you know what, I guess my quest now, if I could say, moving forward in relationship, it's with ease and grace, and always coming back to myself. You know, because I know now that I have the power to embody what I believe in and affect people in my environment, even when it doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's perception as well.
Which
If you can witness yourself, you know, witness your own thoughts, witness your own emotions, witness your own body, stay on your own path. You know, if we all did that instead of she's doing this, he's doing that. And look, sometimes paths are not congruent. And that's okay.
Yeah. And that's
we also live in a world now where everything's disposable. You know, it's like, I think with a lot of the younger generation, you know, what you're talking about and the way that you handled that was so beautiful to you and Scott. But these days it's like the grass is always greener. You know, it's like everything's instant. We can have whatever we want instantly.
Yeah.
And that is relationship as well.
Yeah.
You know.
But and there's, you know, there's a consequence to that.
Absolutely.
Because we all know we can have what we want instantly. And you know, when we're younger, we try those things, but how does that? Is there a fulfillment in that? Is there happiness in that? Is there peace in that?
There's no
Is there
longevity
truth
in it.
that?
It's the little questions
Is
we
there love?
have to go back to. And I'm just going to say there's one kind of default that I always have. You know, I always ask, what would love do in any situation?
Yeah.
And it just brings me back, you know, to me, and then I'm feeling a lot more certain.
Yeah. And, you know, speaking of love, two of my...
The most beautiful four-letter word.
Yeah.
I mean, and so, you know, we've always had love. Scott and I have always had love, and now it's, you know, it's definitely going to another level. Not that it's perfect, and it never will be.
No.
Because we aren't. You know, we're not perfect, but there's definitely a practice in place. And I have, you know, through a lot of students and a lot of friends and even family members, but I'm always the one doing the work. I'm always the one doing the counselling and the sessions and this and that. And, you know, I noticed that when I was younger, and I noticed that a lot of feedback comes back to me as a, you know, as a, I guess, a teacher, and I have been doing a lot of coaching. That's because we're women.
Yes.
And we're very powerful creatures. We've got hundreds of more hormones than men scientifically. We're complicated, but yet there's an incredible power to that. Less is more. I've learnt that on my journey. But we, you know, the what is the WO with the man? What does the WO and the woman stand for? What is it? You know, is it
That's a big
wise?
question.
Is it openness? Is it? I mean, look, there's so many different interpretations around that, but I just feel we do the work because we can hold the space. We have the capacity, and that's the feminine as well. The feminine, vulnerability, compassion, openness. Some men have that. Some men have more of that feminine quality, and it's just the feminine energy, nothing to do with male, female. So yeah, I think that's why we choose, and we're drawn to this sort of work. Having said that, there's some men doing incredible work in this field as well. But
Where they're drawn
from our love came Jack and Tom. And I mean, any woman who has given birth knows that is an awakening. I did choose the natural path. You know, halfway through I regretted it.
halfway through the
I think
delivery
we all do.
point.
Yeah, I had my natural birthing plan. I read this book called The Art of Joyful Birthing. I was so dedicated to it, and I created a video called Pregnant and Proud of It.
That's
which
right.
Joe, 28 years ago, did some photos because you were pregnant with
Bailey. Yeah. Wild.
And I heard in one of your other podcasts, one of the ladies, and she was talking about plant medicine, giving birth to the universe. And I felt, you know, when she said that, that's how I felt. But, you know, Mother Nature takes over, and I felt like I gave birth to the universe twice, different ways, different planets. They're both on different planets. But it's really, really powerful. And they have been my greatest teachers, as much as, you know, and the, you know, marriage and the relationship, definitely, and all my relationships, but definitely the children, you know, they're here to teach us. And Jack is 28, and Tom's 26, turning 27 in a couple of months.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Rich.
So look, you know, and children, wow, they're just such a huge part of our awakening. Everything that we go through with them. And, you know, when Tom was younger, we went through a lot with him, because being an artist and being really strong with his right brain child in a left brain world, there were a lot of challenges in the early years. And how do they survive? You know, we really need to look after these beautiful artists of the world.
Totally.
And that's an awakening too for the world. It's treasuring our artists that are telling these stories and keep evoking us to be as humanly possible. And to feel, you know, like we're living in a world sometimes all of that technology and desensitized material that we're looking at, or is out there,
Yeah.
trying to avoid.
Yeah.
And losing connection with creating things ourselves. And I was just reflecting back to that classroom situation you're talking about when Tom was younger, and thinking, you know, I know it is hard, you know, when you have a classroom of children, but rather than disconnecting the ones that aren't keeping up or whatever, for whatever reason, that joy for the whole class, that is that team and that unity from finding a rhythm that works for everybody in the class.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's always kids in the class that think, I can't paint, but love painting, and they have these complexes around, you know, how bad their art is or this or that, and yet the kid next to them is so talented, and that unity that can be created with the right
comparison and then the shutting down and
opening everyone up at that age is it's such a beautiful thing to think about as for young children.
That's so amazing you just said that, because my sister now runs art workshops in my studio.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, we're trying to get her in every couple of months, because we did one and everyone loved it. So we had another one, a Christmas one, and the first one I was hosting, serving food, you know, hostess with the mostess. Really love people being in the studio. I'm so excited to share her because she's so talented and she loves what she does. Anyway, so that was great. And she's looking at me like, well, wait a minute, aren't you painting? And she wasn't happy that, I wanted to teach you something, because she's always come on retreats and stuff. And I said, no, not this one, because I've got, and I don't want to paint. And I can't paint.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
And then I'm like, no, I'll do the next one. Anyway, so we planned the next one. She held me to it. You're doing this one. And she had it all set up. Anyway, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Mine did look a little bit like someone at preschool, but that's fine.
That's you expressing Madonna.
Exactly.
It's perfect.
I was pretty happy with that. But it was so much fun, and I really enjoyed the connection. And I mean, look, people do some incredible things with art. There was a couple of people there that, I mean, talk about not even painted before, but just always wanted to, and wow, their art was incredible. So yeah, I completely relate to that, and that the connection, and but yeah, a little bit off the beaten track. I just felt like the whole raising children and everything they go through, no matter what you're going through with your children. I mean, the teen years were really difficult for me with Jack. He wanted to rattle every cage in the universe. I don't know if he'd agree with me, but he did want to shock me a lot, and he would almost enjoy my reaction sometimes if he shared something like, too much information, honey. But he, you know, as I said before, he taught me to step up. I found an inner strength and a fierceness and some boundaries that I guess were always there, but it just reminded me, okay, this is what you need from me. It was also a lesson on an awakening for a mother on letting go. Even at 18. I mean,
there's no other tie. There's no other tie.
No,
like the parent, and I'll speak for the mother and a child.
The umbilical cord. Even, I think, look, I've got friends and family that are even step parents, and I think it's that heart connection that I've looked after you. I want to keep looking after you. I love you.
Absolutely.
And it's that soul connection that you have, and these children have, you know, they've chosen you to somehow help you
wake up,
expand,
wake up,
elevate, whatever it is to
absolutely
grow, and to realize who you are, to really grow into, you know, who you're meant to be. So, you know, they're still on their journey. They're young boys in their 20s, and it's.
I love what you said before about relationships, our greatest, and, you know, in families, and our greatest spiritual assignments. That really resonated.
It's so true, though. It's like they're our biggest reminders. And earlier when you said about the what are we in the woman, the woe.
Yeah.
And I read something the other day about the womb, because the next thing you started talking about was the birth.
Yeah.
And you know, the woman, we hold the universe in our womb. You know, we're birthing, and you did say we're birthing the universe. And I'm sitting here going, of course.
Yeah.
But that may be the woe in the woman, you know,
True,
the womb where we hold everything, you know.
And the sacral energy. So the sacral energy being this birthing of creativity,
absolutely,
this connection to our feelings, to our connection to ourselves and others, to feeling good about ourselves, feeling good about life, and that we're always on a quest for that, aren't we?
Yeah.
Feel good about ourselves and feel good about life. And love and peace and happiness are our greatest intentions. There's definitely all coming from that sacral Svadhisthana womb energy.
Yeah.
Because there's a name for it, and I always forget what it's called. But when I first read about it, it made me cry, because it was that when you said about the umbilical cord. And how, during the pregnancy, our cells pass into the child, and the child's cells pass into us. And when they're born, our cells are still with our child, and their cells are still with us. And so we are physically, energetically, soulfully, lovingly connected in so many ways. And sometimes I think that is so involved in what is actually playing out in our relationship, and we forget about that part of it, because we've got this person in front of us that is actually of us, and they are of us, but yet we're two unique, powerful, incredible, and human beings in our own right.
So true.
There's so many aspects to what we are to each other. So when you're talking about your boys, there's just this beautiful feeling in the room, and just this, we're all resonating with that journey of how you're experiencing those relationships and seeing them grow.
And I've noticed since the last 2 years, especially last year. We're in a new year now. So 2022, especially 2022, there's been an incredible shift for both of them. A real stepping into, and I think because of what happened in 2020, we lost 2 family members, and there was some pretty intense breakdowns, and then 2021, a lot of that was healing. 2020, and then last year 2022, and 222, big significant numbers. I think I shared in the last ep. Both my brothers had 2222 in their passing date, so I was a bit nervous about last year because of the 2s. Having just 2 brothers pass with all the 2s, I was a bit nervous, and because Mum got really, really unwell, but she's turned the corner. She's definitely turned the corner, and we're in 2023.
Yay, thank goodness.
But last year for the boys, it's a big transition in stepping into their fullness, even greater, more expansive way, and the light and the happiness, and owning their purpose, and that's incredibly, after everything we've been through, and I don't think of me, I think more collectively, everything we've been through, it's just the greatest sense of fulfillment to have your children land on their feet and feel safe and happy, and have a light, have a light that they're holding.
You're saying all this, and I'm thinking, do you think this is a little reflection of you, where you were at too? Yeah, I feel that. It's like, what,
late 20s.
Well, even just over, just there, everything you're saying, it's just like the whole certainty, finding, knowing where you're going, seeing more of your light, a lot more of your light.
Yeah. They absolutely go hand in hand.
I
think
they
fuel each other, don't they? It's almost like light,
Yeah.
This ladder of, the lanterns. And that in your family home, to feel that it is an essence that, I don't know, sparks you like nothing else. You know, your own journey that you've been sharing, and how much you've invested
I think
into that. But to, you know, have it in your space, it's like what you were trying to say, Jo, is like a reflection of yourself. It's contagious to everybody around you.
Yeah. And it's exactly what you've been talking about, you know, practicing what you preach throughout your whole life. You've been doing that, and now you've got these two beautiful boys that are living, walking examples of that. So beautiful.
And, you know, they wouldn't let me take all that credit.
No, absolutely
Heck no.
And definitely their father has been an incredible influence. So I guess in an esoteric and in a spiritual way and an emotional intelligence way, definitely. And also, I guess from early years, I've always been very self-motivated and, you know, very, obviously from everything that I've shared, quite self-empowered from an early age. So I feel that has definitely had an impact. I feel that. But Scott he's the ground warrior.
Yeah.
He's the earth. You know, I am earthy.
Yeah.
That didn't reverberate too much. And I love hiking and getting my feet on the sand, and I love Mother Earth so much. You know, the power that we get and how much we need to appreciate what we have every single day. But he is very earthy and practical.
Practical.
Yeah.
It's a nice balance,
He,
really.
and also he's, you know, details.
Yeah.
Details that sometimes, I know now I run a business. You know, I've got to be a micromanager in some respects, but I've always been, I guess, better at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And the production side of things, and less is more approach, and a trust that I know why I'm doing this. 100% with all my heart know why I'm doing this. How I'm going to do it, that will unveil
We'll work
itself.
that out as we go. Yeah.
That will reveal itself. I just trust in that, and a lot of that comes from the work that we do. You know, the practice. So whether it's the whatever you're feeling into, like people had this student come this morning and say, what should I do? Where do I start? And, you know, here's the 5-class trial offer. Why don't you just try it? Like, you know, this is your test taste menu. See what you like. Sample each of them, because everyone's different. And then once you get more experience, like for me, I know what I need on certain days. So certain days I need Kundalini, certain days I need yin. It might be that I need Kundalini in the morning and yin in the afternoon. Might be that I need a good strong vinyasa practice, or yesterday afternoon it was a nice chill flow or a nice hatha bliss sort of practice. So you know, it's tuning into yourself so that you feel supported daily.
It's a funny thing because
otherwise the channels get clogged.
Yeah.
The channels get clogged and we forget. We forget our why, and we forget who we really are, and we forget how to be happy. We forget how to relax, you know.
Sort of an autopilot as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I've just been thinking about this, just exactly what you've just been saying, because I've lived pretty much in the flow, not like just winging it, you know, and it's not until, and now I'm in my 50s, I've been going, okay, so I know that walking in the morning makes me feel great. So I'm going to, even though I, you know, sometimes struggle to get out of bed really early, I know that it makes me feel good. Or yoga, if I'm not walking, then I'll do some yoga. But I was really unaware of those things, if that's, you know, if that makes sense. It's like not till I've got to an age, and I know there's some listeners that'll be like, that are really structured in their way that they've grown up right from a young age, you know, knowing what they like, what their body needs and all that. I've never been one to listen, and I'm only starting to do that now. It's an interesting thought.
And that's the huge part of the awakening.
Absolutely, and we're all so different.
That tuning in. Yeah, absolutely. Very, very different, but also very the same.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of sameness. There's a lot of, you know, connection that we share and things that work for all of us, but it's just fine-tuning But what flavour do I like?
Yeah.
Mm.
Do I need structure?
What texture?
Do I not need structure?
How you thrive?
Yep.
Because we're all composed. I guess some of us have got a stronger earth element.
Yeah.
Some of us a stronger ether.
Yep.
Or air, or water, or fire.
Yes.
So you're going to relate a little bit differently. You know? So
there's another aspect as well, as where you might feel it, know what you need, but then you put yourself down the list. So what of not perhaps choosing to give yourself what you need, which is also, I guess, just saying that reflects back to what you said way back about suppression, and then there's a release that comes somehow.
Yeah.
But would that be an element as well? Like, there's that kind of a type of person, like that's say perhaps doesn't hold space for themselves so much as they hold space for others, or
I wouldn't say that's an element. So your elements being the tattva energy, so the earth, air, water, fire, ether that we're all composed of, and some of us are a little bit stronger than others, but if we're not holding space for ourselves, that's there tends to be like a samskara, or a mind impression from the past or from the way past, a mind impression that affects our behaviour today.
Okay.
And then that becomes a matter of retraining or reframing that thought, and reframing therefore that energy and that behaviour and that choice.
Yeah.
So
you have to recognise that, and then I guess that's
shining the light on that.
Yeah.
Shining the light on that, and then how does that serve us? I mean, once you start to do this sort of work, it's always coming back to why.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. What's my intention? And maybe also your sankalpa. What's your heartfelt desire? What is your heartfelt desire? And is this in that direction? The only other thing that I didn't share last time.
Yeah, let's not miss anything.
No.
Was the I had this terrible bacterial infection.
Oh yeah, you did mention that.
Yeah.
Where you nearly died.
Yeah.
It's just a small thing.
I did forget about that, because that I guess, as I said before, time and everything, but trying to fill everything in. But I picked it up in Bali, and I got back, and I was just
Where are we? Like, what age? Have you had kids? Was this young?
This was I'd gone to Bali to do a Zentai Shiatsu course.
Yeah.
The kids were a bit older, and I had relatives and helping Scott, well, mums mainly, and so I was there for, it was nearly 3 weeks. It was a big stint, but it was a really beautiful part of Bali, and it was an incredible course where we immersed in this 8-10 hours a day, and I was contracted to be the yoga teacher at the beginning of the schedules, and they were hectic schedules, and we started at 5 a.m. and we right till dinner time, and then I was learning this Zentai Shiatsu method, massage technique, which is beautiful in itself. So absolutely loved the experience. But when I got home, I lost a lot of weight, but that was mainly because of all of the energy that was going out, and the massaging all day, and
the heat and
the
everything.
yoga, the heat, the quality of the food was beautiful.
Yeah.
But there was a stop between where we were, which is on the east side of Bali, near the volcano, which has escaped my mind at the minute, but right on the beautiful east side, Jasri. And then we stopped at, I think it was Seminyak, and I had something to eat there. It was just like some kind of rice bowl, and I just felt off in the belly, and then I was on the bathroom quite a lot.
Yeah.
In the bathroom quite a lot.
We got when you exactly what you meant.
Then when I got home, I was just really, really unwell. And I just, oh my God, what is wrong with me? And I sort of went to see the doctor a couple of times, but it turned out that I had an infection, that I'd let it go a little bit too long. I was taking antibiotics, but it just got worse. And then it got to the point where I could hardly walk. The pain was intense. I ended up in hospital, and I was on a drip.
Wow.
Which was all fine, bacterial infection, urinary, kidney infection, on a drip, antibiotics, that whole story. had an allergic reaction.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Didn't know that was happening, but after a couple of days, I was getting worse to the point where I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't move my legs. I could hardly lift my arms.
Wow.
I was so dehydrated. I thought I was in the desert and I was going to die.
Wow.
It was just excruciating. And the pain was excruciating. And they were sort of fumbling around. It was a hospital on the Gold Coast, and they're fumbling around for, oh my God, it was nearly 2 days. And Scott thought I was actually going to die. It was so bad, and it was almost like I felt like I was shutting down. And a doctor came in, like, sort of obviously the intensity was up and it was being rushed through all these scans. And he said, I think she's having an allergic reaction. And so then they started to reverse everything. It took me 1 year to get over that. Yeah.
So your whole system was...
messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so therefore, since then, a super sensitivity.
Yeah, right.
To, I mean, look, that was 2012, so now we're coming up 11 years, and I would say that this year I'm fully healed.
Yeah.
But I mean, my energy and the work that I've done on myself with herbs and supplements and the good quality organics, and some people say, wish I could be as healthy as you. Some people are forced to be healthy.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice. You've really got to make choices to survive. And you've got to make choices so that you can still function.
Absolutely.
And when you're aware of your body too, to be that sick, you don't want to be that unwell for very long, do you? Like there's a great motivation to feel back into being yourself again.
Yeah, I still
it's
taught.
a big road.
I mean, I came out of hospital and there was a few weeks but that I went back and I taught totally different. And my clients at the time were older and, they loved it. And they could see that I struggled to walk and I struggled to sit and I struggled to do a lot of things. And they're like, wow, but you can still do yoga.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty, you can adapt so much no matter what you're going through. I have so many students now, and because they've been with me for so long, and, I share lots of things over the time. And so no matter what they're going through, I say the most important thing is just keep showing up.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Especially when you're going through stuff, whether it's mental, emotionally, mentally connected, it's physical.
Yeah.
I have a lady that's really debilitated with her foot at the moment. She's had an accident and she still keeps coming, and there's so much that she can do, and she is learning to modify. I mean, we've obviously over the years been so many modifications and options given, but she's learning to modify, and she experiences another level that she didn't experience before. She's still experienced the bliss in Shavasana, still experienced the mental clearing and the nervous system reset in the breath work and the mantra, whatever it is. But when I was in hospital and things were, pretty intense, and I remember not being able to move and being on the drip and looking out the window, and even though I could sense everyone getting quite fearful, and there was just an energy shift. But I looked out the window and there was this incredible tree. It was just the most, I can still see it. It makes me emotional. And there was this incredible tree, and the sun was hitting the tree, and the light that was coming through the window. And I remembered these mantras that I'd been practicing, and what they meant. And obviously there's one called the Mangala mantra, which is a protective mantra. And I just started to sort of sing that. Someone had opened the door and I'd stop singing, but people would come in and say, "Are you singing?"
Maybe.
But it gave me so much relief and so much strength and peace. I just felt like I held space, through a time that was pretty scary. But wow, what an awakening, and what a lesson in no matter what you're going through, draw on those tools. You know, we've got these tools, we've got these ancient rituals and tools for a reason.
Absolutely.
And it's to help us through the toughest time, and to have a self-empowerment kit. And even in the art of dying, you know, people go, oh, you know, you've got your family, you've got all these people, but I've seen it, you know, and that's why I'm always there for someone in my family. I'm right there by their sides, because I've seen it firsthand. When someone's dying, they die alone. A lot of people die alone. Whether that's sometimes a choice. I know for my dad it was a choice. He knew I was on my way, but people, you know, they, for whatever reason.
Well, those mantras that you were singing, as you say, like when you could have possibly been moments away from death any moment if, you know, as you say, everything was shutting down, you had no control over your movements. To be in that space where you're channeling that energy, it's as a protection, which is perfect. But you're connecting with the nature out the window as well. You're actually holding space for your body to hold in there, be strong, focus on an energy field that is sustaining to you, even though there's so much going wrong.
Absolutely. But it was almost like there was an angel light coming out of this tree. And I was transfixed. I couldn't get, and every time someone left the room, I'd respect anyone who came into the room, especially those beautiful nurses. And, you know, there was one particular nurse, she was African American, and she just had this really old school, loving, nurturing way. And, you know, look, when someone's unwell, and, you know, the kindness people show in those moments and the nurture in those moments, gee, we need more of that. It's just
amazing,
so beautiful.
Compassion, isn't it?
But as soon as someone would leave the room, that light would come up in the tree. I would be transfixed by that, and I would just sing mantra. And it was just, it held me really strong, and it was, and, you know, possibly a very big part of
what got you
supporting me through physically and emotionally, like the strength.
Put enough significance on all of those modalities, like the prayer, for instance, or meditation, or having an altar, or the mantras, and all of those wonderful things that a lot of people class as like woo woo or whatever. It's like, oh, hang on a minute, you know.
I don't know if, you know, I think if anyone's still saying woo-woo, honestly, because the amount of people, I mean, I've got, you know, 18-year-olds to 70-year-olds that come in and with, you know, our altar and our mantra, and they just are so fulfilled and so grateful and so...
well, they're feeling the authenticity of
it. Their life's changed. And I guess I still keep it very grounded, you know, and no one, you know, no one is on a pedestal. It's we're all just beautiful, you know, souls finding our way, and navigating the tough times. But I think essentially what I mentioned in the last episode, the end of the last episode, is essentially learning to be that Waheguru, that infinite ecstasy, that infinite light, and thriving in love, thriving in happiness, thriving in, you know, the joy of each other.
Slowing down enough to be able to embrace that. That seems to be quite a big theme, isn't it? You know, and where your studio creates that space for people to be able to come in and, as you say, choose the different modalities that you're offering, like whether it's more yang style, more yin style, you know.
And you know, some people are not even ready to come in. They just sit outside. They sit at the coffee shop outside, and they tell me, I just sit here because I can feel what's going on in there. And they love the vibration. They love all the people that come out. They say they just pour out, and everyone's just got this happy, blissful look on their face. And so I don't even mind if people don't come, as long as in some way there's this energy vibration that's affecting. And then, you know, my purpose is you know, feels fulfilled, and what I set out to achieve is, you know, if it's a really good feeling that that when you believe in something so strongly and you see it before your eyes,
Yeah.
manifesting. It's a very, very powerful feeling, and one that I want for the rest of my life. And I think now, I mentioned, the travel with Scott, but we are at a space in time where it is about us. It's I've kind of been of service to the community and of service, and I still will be. But I feel like it's like when you've done your apprenticeship and you've done your trade, and you've worked really hard on yourself and the practices, and you've worked really hard on setting up a business that's going to be sustainable to support people.
Yeah.
Because essentially, that's what a business needs to be doing, supporting people, including yourself. But that's the point. That's the service.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if it's just a self-service, so be it. But for me, it just doesn't do it for me.
And it sounds like you're kind of talking about you're moving into a next phase, like where you've done your service in the community. Now there's a bit of a calling, or a big calling to some service to yourself and to your partner, and having some time and some play around what that is, and having what you're setting up within your business continue on with its own life force, and in and out of that as you choose or are able, because of what you're choosing to honour in your relationship to yourself and to your partner. But then I straight away hear, well, I can just see in you, Madonna, that might have a time span, whatever that might be, a year, 2 years, 5 years. But then, Madonna's going to be doing this work when she's 90.
Yeah.
I can't see a limit on your...
Yeah, no, I think that is exactly, you've nailed it. That is
it's
exactly
like a reset
right.
opportunity, isn't
Because
it? Refresh.
I wanted to create something where I'm training other teachers. I mean, we have 12 other teachers.
Amazing.
So they're all on board. These beautiful souls that are teaching from their hearts and with their strong commitment to service. They're holding space for the community as well.
Yeah.
I'm 100% invested. You're right, it is in a time and space where Scott and I will be honouring more of ourselves, and especially as he moves towards retirement.
Yeah.
But I always say to the students, when do you think I should retire? And they look at me blankly.
Yeah. Huh?
And they're like,
What?
and I said, because you know what I'm feeling? I'm feeling that one day, and I don't know when.
Yeah.
How can you say?
Especially when you love so much. You love something so much.
No, but what I was going to say was one day when I'm, whatever age, and it could be 90, that I'll be in Shavasana.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or I'll demonstrate Shavasana. And I just won't get up.
Yeah.
They'll just see
But
a
I warn
light
them.
floating towards the
Yeah.
sky.
How beautiful.
And it'll be Madonna just...
And I won't get up, and that'll be my final class, my final Shavasana. Because that's what we're preparing for, right? The art of letting go peacefully. But they laugh,
Yeah.
They know me.
I don't want to end the
It's
episode
that
on that
scene-
note.
It's that scene in Kung Fu Panda, isn't it, when the master, the turtle disintegrates under the tree as he's saying his last words to his people. That always makes me cry.
Yeah.
But what a gift as a teacher, though, to be creating that community with your your students, as in your teachers, and because when you think about what is your legacy, as in when you're talking about departing, and there's always, well, not always, occasionally that thought, what am I leaving behind? What are people going to miss about me when I go? The different variations around that. But
Will she ever go?
Yeah. Is she ever going to get
Never.
off that mat? The legacy of what you leave behind, and to impart your learnings and
And I'm still learning. I'm still growing, even though I kind of at that I feel like the last stage of life, if you've got 4 stages, 25 years times 4, I feel like I am moving towards that last stage, maybe not
Not
No,
quite.
I don't.
It's
I
not
think you
quite.
cut yourself short there.
Not quite.
Yeah, not quite. But I am moving towards that last stage, and
You're in your third quarter.
yeah, I still feel like I'm growing, and you know what I'm loving, besides obviously the practice and the sharing and the connection, but I'm putting myself in really uncomfortable situations, and I'm
By choice, is it?
Yeah, like this,
Yeah.
like
Great.
leaning into a vulnerability and a truth that I've always shared in very, very small circles or one or two people. Getting out of my own way so that people can relate and say, okay, there's definitely a way to navigate this. You know, I'm not lost and I'm not lonely, and this is not. I am indestructible.
Yeah.
I am an indestructible spirit. That was part of our theme this morning. I am an indestructible spirit, which is
like
without
that.
question. It's
I think
without
that's a
question.
real theme for 2023 is like that certainty is becoming quite strong.
Well, our eternal, unchanging nature, our inner truth is
Exactly that.
it's indestructible.
Yeah.
It's infinite. It's unquestionable. Obviously, well, not obviously, but like as far as I feel, there's a lot of mystery,
Yeah.
and that's good.
That's great.
It's good not to know everything.
I agree.
And
And
scientists can prove so much, but it's good not to know everything, because therefore you're always learning. And it's like when you rest on your laurels and you think you know it all or whatever, but you lose energy.
I think that it's that getting outside your comfort zone.
Getting
It's what
outside
you
your
said.
comfort zone.
I think that's where we need to go more because we learn so much about ourselves in those moments.
And that's where the courage,
Yep.
the vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
but our biggest transformations happen
Absolutely.
in those zones. And what am I doing this year that's outside my comfort zone? This. Oh, look, business is always stretching me. Business is, really stretches me because I'm creative and
It's
I
part of
love
the
my
construct.
spiritual teachings.
They
And
don't
I
call
love-
it bricks and mortar for
Yes.
nothing.
No.
But business is important. Like, I have a business coach who I absolutely love dearly, and she was a student who she feels, the teachings, I don't like to say my teachings or my classes, but the teachings helped to transform her and transform her business. So now she is helping me with mine, and
Beautiful.
yeah, she's quite powerful and significant in that arena. And I've always found business really challenging. Most people do, I guess, because you're dancing between holding it together in a business sense, which can be a very masculine energy, and then all of this, this beautiful part that I feel I can do quite naturally.
Yeah.
But the business needs to be strong to sustain what it is that your service is. So this part, the yang and the yin go together.
Yeah.
So I've learnt that the hard way, through over the years. I've learnt that the hard way, but haven't we all, in some respect, whether you've learnt whatever you've learnt through the hard way?
Yeah.
That's all part of this awakening.
But
The
I think-
business is, the energy exchange is important to sustain the service, and the service is what you love and what you're passionate about, and how many people that, I want to help infinite numbers of people. So, that's where I had to get my head around, okay, well, business is important to sustain this.
It's a bridge to communicate all that. And I think there's a lot of change around business now too, because there's, so like you said about your business coach and, how you're choosing to honour what your business is about. So many businesses, are, I was, hating saying the words new age, in the way that they are functioning, because they realise they have to have a bottom profit line, they have to be able to pay bills and things like that, but they are still the strongest pillars in the business infrastructure is around what's important to them in the service that they're offering. Those things aren't discarded, or they're not the smaller pillars, or there's a massive change around how businesses are.
We do have community. To kind of round it off, and I would love to round it off with something a little bigger than the business.
Well, I want to come back to the indestructible spirit, because for me that's that thing around.
I agree.
A soul having a human experience, but it's a motherfucker way of saying it.
It is.
I love it. I really connect with that. Yeah. It's a really powerful way to say that.
Maybe a quote too.
Oh yeah.
About in this time, there's this Aquarian time that we're definitely intensifying through the Aquarian age. So our Piscean values have given way to the Aquarian values. The difference being the two is very simple. Piscean values work from the ego, creating boundaries. Aquarian values have no boundaries, they are infinite. Aquarian consciousness takes you inside your soul so that you can relate to the soul in all.
Oh yeah, that's so powerful.
Yeah.
That's that
so resonates. You can relate to the soul in all, and it doesn't mean that you don't have, it says no boundaries, but when you can relate to the soul in all, and obviously that takes a lot of practice. It's easier said than done. Like most things, that are amazing and that will change you and change the world. There's a practice involved. But that is a powerful quote.
It's a beautiful quote and a really lovely one to round it off with. So beautiful.
I feel like it's really humid today.
Yeah.
And we've done really well. But I feel the energy's like
it's just
softer and
It's
compared to last time. Maybe I was more nervous last time as well.
Yeah, maybe. And you've been here before, so you know the space. Yeah. It makes a difference too. Yeah. But thank you so much for coming back on.
You're welcome.
We loved that we got to open up those parts that we didn't get to see last time.
And bring it through into that movement, because that quote you just shared with us kind of symbolises everything, isn't it? Like it's like a moving through life, all the things we experience, to stay with fresh eyes.
And I feel that's what you two do in your podcast, like this connection to the takes you inside your soul so that you can relate to the soul in all. So you're having conversations with women who are doing this kind of like really deep energy work and soul work, and helping people to relate to the soul in all. That's sort of feel that when I listen, and that's what I feel is happening.
A lot of self-validation, which has been really lovely, and that's the feedback we've been getting, is that
from listeners
that they see a lot of themselves in different listeners, and
being able to relate.
And that's what's really powerful.
The resonating.
Well, keep listening.
Thank you, Madonna, for sharing so openly and so powerfully. Really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeehaw.
Thank you for listening, and remember, all links to our guest are in the notes. Leave us a comment here or message us on Instagram how our guest today connected with you, or perhaps something you wish to share. A special thank you to the blissful Ksenia Luki for our theme song. Joe and I will be with you next week.
Bye.
Ciao.
She teaches me lessons, and boy does she sing. Her voice sways like a hummingbird, flies like a shooting star. She whispers, you were never born, so you will never die.